Begin, welcome you all the panelists, right from, I think, from the US and from the region. Appreciate your time to, join us today on the Education E-Solutions webinar to talk about, for example, the future of education and how the impact would be. And definitely I can see there's a lot of traction coming up, and we have seen last couple of months, the pandemic, which already have driven. So exciting. I think next 2 hours would be, and definitely think the participants will be all, excited too. So without waiting further, I'll start with my brief presentation, and then we'll hand over the panel to Rasha. So let me begin that. Yeah. So just to start on the talking points of higher education in KSA. I can see definitely there is a. Let me just quickly check on that if the recording started. Okay, fine, recording is on. That's good. So just to give a background to the higher education in KSA, to the all the participants who are here, basically from the region and from the Far East and the West Coast. So Saudi Arabia, definitely the Deputy Minister has highlighted that hybrid learning, as a part to the future, and definitely distance learning or e-learning should no longer be viewed simply as a response to emergencies, but as a strategic option for the future. Okay, so that's a very strong message from the Deputy Minister of Education, that currently kind of hints us what kind of next engagement would be required in terms of the universities, or for example in terms of the education technology. Certainly, the 2021 for the universities in Saudi, and especially in terms of the changing dynamics, for example. So we can see there's a lot of change in the business models. A lot of the universities are going autonomous, for example, and the Vision 2030, which push these universities to achieve a goal to have at least 5 Saudi institutions to be ranked as top 100 universities in the world, right? So that's one of the major benchmark, and definitely with the innovation in education can be implied, right from the problem solving, or it can act as a tool, to for evolving as well, and it's definitely a critical piece for all of us. And last point I want to continue here. That definitely ministry and universities may consider or may consider different needs towards the gig economy to offer different formats, right? So and then these different formats can be linked to with the rubric and to interlace that's towards achieving micro credentials, which is some of the points. I think a lot of these being talked about, right from Google to World Economic Forum. So we have seen these discussions having in many international conferences. Next point, the role of technology. Definitely, technology plays a vital role, as we all know, and definitely emerging technologies. It's an all-time high, and with a focus on, for example, artificial intelligence, for example, or immersive technologies. So with that, I can say, considering the speed at which we are innovating, education must keep up its pace to keep the learners informed, upskilled, and get them definitely employed. So learning content, must be again reconstructed in order to be the most relevant. And education, I would say, OTT, there's something I'm kind of coining, could be a kind of a platform that might be needed and could have many, could solve many such content issues. So definitely not into the entertainment, but definitely it helps in the education domain as well. So we can see a lot of, lot of demand, or lot of ask is being, been there with various universities asking for different types of content, right for the, discipline, for example, let's say engineering content, science, or maybe, it's kind of a business communication. So a lot of this content is being demanded with a push, all of us has had with the pandemic. And these content, as we've seen in different formats, so we have just mostly the online collaboration part, a synchronous tool, but we don't have any rich content or rich interactive content as a self-paced learning. There we have find a definite gap in the market. And I would say definitely e-learning 2.0, will definitely create a kind of a positive learning mobile environment. Okay, definitely with an empathy, with a connect with the learners. So it's not totally like a self-paced, but with a definitely connect and personalized learning. I think this new approach for modern education would definitely have these platforms with a possibility to include AI, deep learning, and machine learning. So I think that's what my take on the technology in higher education, and definitely with that, I would like to welcome the panel, and let me stop my sharing. Yeah, so I would like to welcome the panel, and Rasha on the on the panel would be the moderator. Welcome, Rasha, to the this particular conference, and I will be happy to for you to host the next round of the webinar. Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks for attending. I'm Rasha Al-Malik, a manager of System and Application Unit at Dar Al-Hikmah University, and I'm pleased to be a moderator for this session. We are very glad to have you today to talk about envisioning future of education to shape in 2021 and beyond. As we know, all the institutions have made short-term changes to make a student learn online using a virtual environment, but they have to do a long-term changes to make a student learn in positive and in safe environment under all possible scenarios. So let me introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Wadee Al Halabi. He is a professor of computer science department in King Abdulaziz University. Also, we have Dr. Muhammad Khalil. He is an assistant professor in general education department at Effat University. And we have Mr. Ramesh. He's the CEO of Pneumatics Company, and he has over 30 years experience in engineering solutions. And we have lastly, Mr. Mark. He is an international consultant, tech expert, and quoted in CNN and in Time magazine. Firstly, we want to discuss the first question with our panelists based on their experience and with this current shift toward online learning to reach all learner online. How do you see the universities will shape the education in 2021 and beyond? So Dr. Wadee, he is a professor, computer science in computer science department in Faculty of Computing and Information Technology. He is a PhD in electrical and computer engineering from University of Miami. Dr. Wadee, he has electrical and computer engineering from Al Qura University, and his research interests extend to virtual reality and cyber therapy and image processing. Dr. Muhammad Khalil hold a PhD in comparative civilization from University of Athena. He had worked at the University of Asyut, and he has been an assistant professor in general education department of the University of Effat since 2013. Mr. Ramesh, he has over 30 years experience in engineering solution. Mr. Ramesh can be rightly called a technologist. His dedication and hard work is expressed through his company, Nomadics. And Nomadics is a unique solution that helps to improve how kids learn and how educators teach. And finally, we have Mr. Mark. As we said, he is an international entrepreneur, author, innovation consultant, and tech expert. He quoted in CNN and in Time magazine. And Mr. Mark has a rich experience in technology and consulting. And we have Mr. Zileka as a speaker in our conference, in our webinar today, Dr. Khadija, and Dr. Hiba, Mr. Nicholas, and Mr. Iskander. Let's go with the first question to our panelists, Dr. Wadee, Dr. Muhammad, and Mr. Ramesh, Mr. Mark. So based on your experience, how do you see the university will shape education in 2021 and beyond?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So how universities will shape 2021 related to education, related to online, related to pandemic. Well, if you look at very quickly, if we look at what we need in teaching, and we use all those platforms, we might find out that the universities are the platform or the society or the community where we can accumulate all these learning, and we can summarize them in 6 bullet points. Number one, what we need to do is, or what the universities are doing, or what the university is supposed to be doing, is the creation of the materials. Now, educators spend lots of time reading and researching and getting involved with other educators in the online and other people in the same professions in different networks. Also, this is paired with their experience. So this will lead to prediction of the materials that could be used in education. So to make this point short, is the creation of the materials and how this could be used by the student. The second one is also very related to the first one, which is how to convert the text-heavy environment into other type of resources. So instead of students just reading books and maybe bother reading, not everybody is interested in reading, but still reading is very important. But we can transfer those materials very easily using the online tools, and could be utilized by the online platforms, that those tools could be converted into different resources, which get to deeper level of comprehension. And even a student could be participating in this type of exercise. Another thing is encouraging participation of the student. Online platforms encourage a student to participate, because participation means discussion, means sharing ideas, means connecting with other students, either from the same class or from different class or from different places, where we can run webinars or seminars or little conference. I mean, this thing is not as before, because in the previous days, attending conference or workshop, which is not online, involved lots of expenses and lots of time to go there. But now you can attend any seminar, any group discussion, any study groups, anywhere, even if you are not in the same location physically or geographically. So this is could be utilized and could be practiced at the university level. Also, releasing responsibilities means releasing responsibilities from the educator to the students. Now, students are taking the lead and are engaged on regular basis, which is very important. However, as the course continue, the hope is that they will continue to take all these responsibilities. I mean, it could be released from the professors and from the mentors to the student level, and they can have the discussion within the group, and they can have their project within the group. So these relationships become responsible for supporting participation and deeper learning within the course. Again, also summarization. If we ask a student to, which is number 5, this is a comprehension strategy that is essential to assessing success with learning. So students, when they summarize the materials, when they are asked to summarize what they got during this session, it will add up to their comprehension, and it will do some reinforcement learning. The last one which is assessment. Assessment in the online platform is done maybe like the online assessment, running an online quizzes or online exercises, which with the feedback to the student, which become very easy as if we can use the technology to do the auto grading or just post the grade for the student. This assessment is an ongoing task where a student can utilize and can understand the feedback and get back to the instructor with the different type of answer. So these are the 6 pillars, which from my point of view, looks very important that universities could use to utilize the online learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Muhammad.
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm here. First of all, thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to be with you today. It's a great thing to be. And I'd like to welcome my old colleague and dear friend, Dr. Wadee, especially to see him such a long time. So great to see you all, and great to see you, Dr. Wadee. So let's not, I would like first of all to say that Dr. Wadee already summarized many important things that were running in my mind. And I would like to stress on something that I believe to be also important for the universities and for as an advice, maybe, or a message to ourselves as instructors in the universities, that the psychological effect of what we are passing by seems to be one of the most important things that we should pay attention for. As now, I believe that as I got from the discussions with many of my students, feeling isolated or alone or away from the place that students used to come physically in daily basis, males or females, that plays a major role in the way that they are receiving every single information that we are sending them. Yes, we do have the equipment. We are developing ourselves in daily basis, searching for new methodologies that we are trying to reach our students, providing them with every single source that would be helpful for them. Regarding that, we are having in our minds that there are some older generations of instructors who are not so very familiar with the use of these electronic sources that we are using right now. And they needed help and assistance, and they are still in the same frequent need for help and assisting. So far, some of them didn't even know how to use some programs like Blackboard, like using the Zoom and so on. So they needed the help for that. That's from the part of the instructors. Some of the instructors already can, or maybe I would say that they are trying or not able to approach in a simple way, the way that they can teach online. That is what we're talking about. So the infrastructure might exist and can be obtained by somehow. Programs are there, libraries, electronic are there. And now it depends also on how each country can be able to face the whole situation, which seems to be part of our lives in the whole academic process, not only at the universities, but also at schools. So from our own side as universities, we need to pay more attention for this psychological background that would prepare an instructor to be able to teach, to communicate and interact with his students on the online session. I believe that it's not that easy to make the other person on the other side of the screen that I'm looking at to pay attention for me as long as I can. It's not that easy, I believe, and it's a kind of a performance that needs training, changing in methods, using some ways to attract people's attention. I agree with Dr. Wadee that from time to time I need to ask questions, talk to people, ask them to participate, but it doesn't have to be all the time by only the hard or tough way or the serious way. It can sometimes be like, as sometimes I do, I ask my students at the beginning of the class, let's have a few moments to talk about what did we do in the weekend. what happened. And as less number you might have students, it will be easy for you to be able to get this result from them and to make them not communicating with you, but to be interacting with you as instructor. That's the side, that the other side with the students as they are in a need, deep need. And this is what I am quite sure about, to get sure that they are not being only directed that this is what you should learn, this is what you should read, this is your quizzes, and these are your exams and assignments and projects. Of course, the educational process must go on by the way that we will be quite sure about that students will get the best benefit of it. Of course, we don't disagree with that. But from the other side, we need to be able to and to be aware about that we are human beings, and they are human beings, and they need sometimes to be asked different questions like, how do you do? Did you understand this? Do you have any comment on that? Did you face any problem with something that I asked you to? A question of something that telling people, hey guys, you know what? As you might feel that you are at home, because many of the students, they are not going out, especially that we are teaching for females. So many of them are not going out because they are taking all their courses online and they are at home. So they need to feel that, yes, what about your life? How is it going as human beings? So that, I believe, that will complete the whole image and make this whole academic process, because of the pandemic, it is going as much as we can on the best way. So sources we need, infrastructure that we have, developing what we're having as skills of all of us instructors that should be having as above all that all the time the vision of that we are dealing with us as human beings. We are parents, we have brothers, sisters, we have our sons and daughters, and that this kind of human atmosphere would help us in achieving what we are looking for at the end. So one day, if we're gonna meet again somewhere, face to face, inshallah, so very soon, when we meet our students that used to teach them online, we're gonna see some happy faces, not psychological damaged brains or souls that became because of what we are passing by and the whole world is passing by right now. That's it in brief. Sorry if I took a longer time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mark.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for your time today. In the interest of time, because I know we have a lot of interesting questions to get to, I will just add my 2 cents and perhaps an additional perspective to what we've already discussed today. So, I mean, first and foremost, I think universities are going to have to continue to shape their education delivery and future workforce skills. I mean, this is without question. E-learning is something that's been talked about for a long time, but to my colleagues' points, there was a lack of skills, there was a lack of capabilities, and as universities are overcoming this, the question is now, how do we move from survival mode to thrival mode, right? How do we start thriving in this environment? And for me, the one thought I'd like to leave with you, just as a start to the conversation, is one of the things that we're starting to see is not just friction around, of course, the delivery of education and making sure that we cover the education delivery aspect, that we have the right academic and mental health resources, but also that we start to address the friction of moving from graduation to professional employment. So how can universities support their students in such an environment where you don't have the same kind of access to in-person interviews, to seeing the offices, to seeing people and understanding who you want to work with and how you want to work and what you want to do? So understanding and working around the friction of post-graduation employment, whether that's continuing academic opportunities, whether that's exploring new professional opportunities, both the mobility and the workforce needs that need to be addressed around this is something that's going to become increasingly important moving forward. So as we shift to e-learning, we start to adapt and we start to thrive in this environment. And from what I've seen, and from what we've talked about today, definitely universities are on the right track. The next big question will be, how can they work with employers in these challenging times to make sure that their students are getting the support they need, that they're meeting the workforce needs, and that they're able to convey their academic accomplishments and qualifications in more of a digital format. So that'll be my initial input for now, and we can revisit this in future questions.
Interesting. Thank you. Mr. Ramesh?
Mr. Ramesh is not on the call today. I think he got some, as I mentioned, some kind of weather emergency, so he's not able to join. Yeah.
Okay. So now let's know about your opinion how the universities will designing the learning to reach all to design a learning environment that can nurture knowledge and values, and to help a student to success to shape their future. Dr. Muhammad and Dr. Wadee, this question's for you.
Okay, so how are universities designing the learning environments? Well, let's look at a statistic and study released by Cisco. And they said by the end of 2023, total of 66% of the global population, which constitutes nearly 2/3 of the world population, will have access to the internet. We need to know this, which means the total number of internet users will grow from 3.9 billion in 2018 to 4.7 billion by the end of 2021. So it means there are lots of people are using the internet. As we discussed earlier in the previous question, there must be an enhancement used of video-based learning. And for the current year, YouTube state and shows that about 7 to 10 users use YouTube platform to help them with an issues they are facing related to work or studies. So as you can see, 7 out of 10 people using YouTube to solve some problems, either related to work or related to studies, means mainly about 70% of the use of the YouTube is related to education in some ways. That's the minimum. And the remaining 3 out of 10 could be for entertainment or other things. So video-based learning is one of the things that universities are utilizing. As you can see, open courses by MIT or Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, and other universities already launched online courses which enhance and help students get their skills at their own pace, which is number 2 item, that self-based learning. Universities are using the technologies to give the student the self-based learning. You don't have to be in class in order to learn. I mean, learning is not only in class. Now, with the self-based learning, it comes to learn activity. Every student has some strength and some weaknesses. A student may like to specific subject, which he will study more often, and some other subject he will study. And the way of studying that subject, some students like to hear voice, other love to watch, other love to read. So all different type of environment will enrich the student learning. One of the technologies that also universities are incorporating is artificial intelligence, which AI likely to dominate a lot of tasks in the near futures and the coming years. It is found that millions of use cases across multiple sectors. One of the commonly used feature is, for example, face recognition. Now, I was discussed this with Professor Abdul, who is the head of the ECE department at University of Miami. How face recognition can be used to in the online learning, which is one of the obstacle of attendance, not only attendance, but also is the student watching the materials? Is he paying attention? Because Professor Muttalib is his main area of research is face recognition and gesture recognition. So artificial intelligence could be used everywhere to utilize the learning. So I mean, it is not a matter of online teaching and learning is not doing as good as the in class, but it's a matter that do we have the, what we call it, the do we really need to do it? Do we really want to do it? I mean, if we want to do it, there are lots of tools could be achieved to do that. Now let's look at other thing, which is data-driven analysis of the student. With the, I'm not now in favor of online and opposing the class study. No, but I'm just giving some advantages of the online teaching. With the online teaching, we could collect all different type of data to do some data analytics, and we can do some data prediction of a student performance. If the student is taking those classes, if the student is doing the assignment, if the student is doing the quizzes, based on all this data and based on previous data, we could predict the performance of the student, and we could tell the student, okay, look, if you keep doing this, you're not going to pass the class. What you have to do is you have to do 1, 2, 3. Now, this could not be done easily by an on-campus attendance unless we have, unless we install some IoT devices to do the data collection. Other than this, also virtual reality, people keep calling me for virtual reality because my main work is in virtual reality. Everybody is moving into virtual reality during the pandemic. They know how it is very hard to teach a student everything online. So one of the things that could be used to help teaching, especially labs and some skills, is using virtual reality. Now, virtual reality become very cost-effective tools these days. I mean, if you talk about virtual reality in 2004 or 5, it is very expensive with low fidelity and low quality. But these days, virtual reality could be as low as a few hundreds of dollars. Again, chatbot. How much chatbot could help in enhancing skills, in reducing the time, in solving, giving answer to student in different discipline, in different area, in different interest related to an administrative or financial or even some academic questions could be easily achieved using chatbot. Now, chatbot, if it is used, and it is being used by some universities and some platforms, which could help the student or could help the user to get to the proper answer as fast as possible, and he will be mostly satisfied with those answers if the chatbot was designed with some lots of care. I mean, if the subject matter expert were involved in feeding this information, the student will be very happy to get those information. And this is what I have now.
Okay. Dr. Muhammad, can you share your opinion?
So I'm here. All right. It's great to start with listening to Dr. Wadee, because I love, this is a speciality, of course. I love the way that when he talks about the virtual reality, one of the well-known establishers of this kind of future vision. So I really admire this. So to continue saying that many universities are facing this kind of challenge in facing this kind of sudden, let's say, problem, or like freezing in front of a huge problem, which was born huge when we talk about the pandemic. And maybe many universities in many countries They were not quite enough ready to be part of what's going on, but they could start to be part of it. So the thing is that the universities have to combine what's happening right now with what is going on in the external world, in this part of the future of students, that some jobs started to disappear, not to exist anymore. Some jobs are facing huge provisions, and positions are facing serious problems that some people started to change their direction 100%, and they need to find something else maybe after years of working. So it means that a role of the university, in few words, towards students in any measure, must put in its consideration as what's going on with my students and what will happen in the future. And once again, if we combine everything that had been said by Dr. Wadee, which is quite right, with what we need to put in our hands from the other side in the universities to check what's going on around with the future jobs with the students. What if this situation, which became part of our life and will be part of our life, even as a plan B for a long time, that we need to put in our minds, what about my students who are right now designing for their future? I mean, for example, some students who are studying tourism, for example, it's one of the many examples. All right, so what about them? How can I provide them with different methods in teaching, skills, attitudes, knowledge for the future that seems to be kind of connected to what we are doing right now? I cannot let them just go out like that without knowing what they are about to face, which they are already part of what they are hearing. So it goes for any kind of measures that got affected by what's going on. We need to rearrange the whole knowledgeable performance and arrangements for the future, which the word virtual became part of. It's not only about teaching and that's it, so we managed to do our teaching process and that's all, thank you, we did it great, all right, and students got graduated. We were talking about the same term that I can see on my screen right now, which talks about the future. So the future is connected to what's going on right now. I need to make my students get safe and graduate. So I'm just sending an open invitation for everyone who is listening to us to think about if he or she as an instructor is preparing his or her students in the specific measure that someone is teaching to get to be so very ready by every single meaning of knowledge, advices, and skills for the future, which we can see how things are running right now. It's an open invitation for every instructor not to leave your students, to face it as a surprise that the theoretical thing while I was a student and teach, learning, and so on is not related to the future that suddenly a student would face in a while, which, as we just named that, like something like the pandemic, if it stays for longer time, or it became part of our way of thinking, that should be part of our way of preparing our students, each one of us in his or her measure, for the future to be able to find a job, something related to the current situation, which seems to be part of our life. That's it. I think so.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Now, Mr. Mark, based on your experience, we want to know what are the technological reforms the country could adopt to make the Saudi a knowledge-based innovation country.
And I think that's a really big question to unpack. And there's a lot of different aspects to this. So first, I mean, when we're talking about a knowledge-based innovation economy, just to kind of structure our thinking, what we're looking at is we're looking at the economic value and the economic development and the social development from human capital and intellectual property. So we're shifting away from the traditional methods of driving progress into knowledge-based technology, innovation, advancement. And this is all about new business models, new technologies. And this, of course, requires investments and reforms to transform the fundamental nature of how people think and how they operate to drive a knowledge-based innovation economy. And so I'm going to talk about it a bit from the perspective of education. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do across the economy, but from the context of universities as enablers and drivers of research, of development, of fresh new talent, of ideas, of creativity, I mean, there's four areas really that need to be covered off on. So the first, and I think we've already alluded to this several times, is talent, right? So how can we ensure that we have curated curriculums and courses that are tailored to what students are interested in, but also reflective of the needs that are in the market? And so I mentioned this in the first question, which is how can we create better partnerships and alignments between universities and employers, especially now where everyone is more accessible than ever, to be able to connect and identify those future forward skills and capabilities that students need to be able to succeed and also thrive in the workplace. So looking at empowerment of our students and enhancing the value of our talent. So reforms in the area of talent. The second is, of course, ecosystem. So universities are ideal places and ideal environments to work on new ideas, to meet smart people, and to build things relatively risk-free, right? So a key part of that would be building an innovation ecosystem at the academic level through incubators, accelerators, integrating with regional and international technology and innovation ecosystems, and providing students and learners with the right coaching, with the right business experts, with the right mentorship from successful entrepreneurs, access to the right legal consultation around what to do with their business or with their technologies, and providing them with as many tools and support that we can in these early stages to help them drive their ideas. So I think building an ecosystem around that and looking at universities as sort of economic or creative zones where we can foster these ideas and innovations is a key aspect. The third would be, so we've gone through talent, we've talked about building an innovation ecosystem. The third is also the infrastructure in terms of how can we create a sort of platform for connecting those students with the resources that they need. So we've seen this around the world in terms of partnerships with key innovators in the economy, with key corporates, with potential buyers, sellers of these technologies, to provide more access to the IT resources, whether it's cloud computing and infrastructure or various technologies, to help facilitate interaction between business, between government, between academia, and between individuals, right? And the last thing, which is more broader at a country level in terms of what Saudi can do to adopt a knowledge-driven, knowledge-based innovation economy, is, of course, the right administrative conditions, right? So we're setting the seeds for this to grow. And as we do that, we need to make sure that the administration, the government policy, of course, aligns with the talent, the ecosystem, and the infrastructure that we're building around innovation, right? And so this is looking at how can we advance incentives, how can we advise support for entrepreneurs, for scientists, for people on the cutting edge, and who are using their knowledge and capabilities to build new technologies, services, products, and things like this. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a huge risk, all right? It's a very scary thing, especially for many students. And so not just providing them with the right resources, but also the administrative conditions for when they start to realize their idea, making sure that government policy is aligned, that licenses and business support is aligned with a process that makes it very easy to very quickly set up and test your innovation in the market and get feedback from the market. You know, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, as soon as possible. So I think those four things would be crucial in terms of technological reforms. We've got talent, from the people that we're empowering. We've got the ecosystem in terms of integrating with innovation hubs, creating incubators and accelerators at universities and treating universities as sort of free zones, right? As sort of economic and creative zones where students are free to innovate and test new things risk-free, essentially. The third is infrastructure in terms of providing the right access to capital, to infrastructure, to additional technologies and facilitating interaction. And the fourth, as I mentioned, would be favorable administrative reforms and outcomes, policies that incentivize entrepreneurship across the board, that incentivize scientific advancement, innovation, and creating the right business structures and processes to help people get set up and test those innovations faster. So those would be the four areas I would say would be areas of technological reform.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Just to continue further, we'll have a quick poll results which we have been showcasing to the to the audience. So let's have a quick result on that. Let's see what's the response. Yeah, so you can see a lot of response. Response have been there for the academic support, so resources. So I guess Mark, one of the points as you mentioned, a lot of academic support or the processes need to be improvised and made more efficient. So I think that's one of the key takeaways on this question. What do you comment on that?
So yeah, happy to share a commentary on this. I mean, definitely it's reflective of what we've seen in terms of improving student online experiences. I mean, we conducted several polls pre-COVID, and there was across the board a very distinct lack of support and excitement for, let's say, not just support resources in general, but especially with regards to online. So, I mean, I think everyone's been scrambling to not only ensure that they have adequate support resources, but also that they're able to provide those through digital channels, right? And so it's a kind of double challenge of having adequate resources and capable resources through people and technology, but also being able to deliver those to the student in a virtual way, right? And everything from maintaining student engagement to mental health, which we've covered through, is absolutely the key right now. I mean, the technology is a work in progress. I mean, we're adapting, but really that's going to be the prevailing issue that we see moving forward. So I think in our upcoming session later now, we can touch on some of those points.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, Rasha, we can move to the next question now.
Okay. Dr. Muhammad, based on your opinion, can you tell us what career chances you see for a student and professional in the next 5 years? And which are the technologies, according to you, will be relevant, and what do you recommend learning?
Wow. All right. So, I am specialized in humanities. I work for things that depends on the talk and the interaction with people. I think that there will be some need for if I take it from my own side, because in these kind of more complicated technological measures, maybe I'm not so very familiar with, but when we take it to people who are depending mostly on these kind of any kind of humanities in studying, learning, teaching, and so on. So I believe that although for those who are specialized in these measures who depend on using the mostly their skills in order to explain things or to act in doing something, we will need to recommend or see that the opportunities who might come as career opportunities for the future will be for people who would be able to combine all their skills. We need to enhance skills for people who are doing these provisions in order to be able to communicate right. Because if we can imagine that this is the way of, for those who are teaching, acting, delivering their political speeches, even running their governments and so on, they need to be able to handle things, as we can call it, through distance. So we need to enhance people who are getting back to the same point, the educational fields, to be able to use all what they have as their human skills to transfer them through any channel that might be used as what we are using right now. So the technology that they might be in need to use will be any kind of, even I don't want to focus only on this, let's say, visual only thing, and even something to be only audible, to be heard, is that they need to be sure that any kind of technology that we already are using right now will be available, will be okay, even for the coming 5 years, to transfer the information that I need to the other part. But I need not to forget that even by time, that as a human being, I need to send this kind of living spirit through any channel that I'm using in order to send my message to the others. If I am a teacher, if I am someone who is explaining anything to the other part, that they need to see me and they need to hear what I'm saying, I need to make them be able to understand and feel what I'm sending them as a message. This is, I'm trying to talk about something that I am maybe familiar with or part of, and I believe that within the coming 5 years or more than 5 years, if I close my eyes and imagine that the way of most of the ways that I'm going to use in order to communicate with others, it would be through some channels that, like what we are using right now. So I would say, all right, the mission is easy. All right, I know that this is a channel that I'm going to use, or the methodological, technological way that I'm going to use. So I'm going to work more and more on myself to enhance all my skills, discover more and more myself, to be able to send my message to my audience who became a kind of a little bit far away from me. So maybe this is what I can see as the career opportunities for those who are working in any fields under the umbrella of humanities and teaching.
The valve we came through was...
That's it. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wadee, can you share with us what do you see?
Well, see, what career opportunities you see for students, very debatable. Okay, so, and lots of statistics and studies have been published, but you see, we're talking about the whole universe. So it is, and if a study was published prior to pandemic and during pandemic and after the pandemic, the answer will be definitely changed. Lots of changes are going on through those 2 years, very dynamic. But one of the things that we could ask questions like, what career do you think will not be available in the future because of the technologies? And one of the things that related to medicine, for example, I guess one of the things which is related to medicine is radiology will have problem in finding jobs in the future because of the other part of the question you ask, which technology, according to you, relevant to what you recommend, because of artificial intelligence and image processing are getting, and neural network and deep learning getting very advanced to diagnose and read X-rays and MRI and even lab tests. So they are being used now in many areas as second opinion, but they are moving very fast to replace radiologists. But if we want to to go back to the question as it was, so some of the jobs opportunities are related definitely to energy, all sort of energy, either solar energy or wind energy or renewable energy. This is one of the things that is getting very fast. One of the studies shows that some interesting career opportunity, which is drone pilot. Well, that might be very interesting also to have a career called a drone pilot in the future, and also the operator and designer of the 3D printing. Now, 3D printing is one of the technologies that are evolving very fast, and we are seeing some universities and research center, even they do bioprinting, and they do lots of research in the area of pharmacology and biology, nursing practitioners, and obviously software engineers and physical therapists. So those are the mainly the main thing that people need. But still, we can't ignore the other part of the story. We can't ignore the artists. We can't ignore the musicians. We can't ignore the writers. We can't live without reading novels and books. So that's why online and e-commerce are getting very aggressive these days during the pandemic. There is a study published recently talking about answering question, do you think everything will be deliverable in the future? You're not going to go anywhere to get what you want. You see, Dr. Mustafa, Professor Mustafa, who works for the Health Academy in Riyadh, which is belong to Saudi Commission for Health Specialists. He told me about a study he read about pandemic, and the study shows that the pandemic moves the online learning 15 years forward. So this is one of the advantage of coronavirus. I mean, if I tell you that we're going to study online, what do you think before the pandemic? If I tell you that, do you think when are we going to take classes online and our certificate will be accredited? I'm sure nobody will say it's in less than 5 years. But you see now the pandemic is there. We are forced to use something that we didn't want to use, didn't want to utilize. But the pandemic shows that, okay, yes, we can do it. And so those maybe the delivery thing could be related to drone pilot or drone delivery or. So these are the evolving technologies, and the technology we need to learn is, well, advanced technology, either going into engineering, different type of engineering, and different type of software developing process. That's from my side now.
Interesting. Thank you. And Mr. Mark, now we want to ask you what technologies such as artificial intelligence will help to adoption, to empowering the worker to transfer and update their skills to be capable with all the businesses and across the global.
So this is a really good question in terms of enabling and empowering workers to transform and update their skills. I mean, just when I read that, I mean, number one, I mean, the thing is that we can't stop learning, right? So I think that there's one way that we can address this from an institutional perspective from the universities, but I do want to point out before I get into that, that's absolutely a question as well for the employers themselves, right? In terms of learning is not something you do in a classroom and then you finish and you're done, right? Now in this day and age, I mean, every single year, every single month, people are updating their skills, markets are changing, jobs are emerging, jobs are disappearing. It's become much more dynamic market, and it's also become much more globally competitive, right? So this is something that we're going to see far into the future. Now, with that said, looking at the education perspective, so As an entrepreneur, what technologies such as AI or e-learning would help in the adoption of such skills? Well, what we're looking at is we're looking at a whole blend of technologies. So everything from, and I think this has been mentioned already, using AI for tracking performance, assessing how students are doing, and delivering customized support based on that analysis, behavioral analysis, statistical analysis, to deliver tailored support to those students to either help them succeed even more or to help them get back on track and get going with their learning journey. E-learning naturally is huge in terms of digital accessibility. And so this is something that's going to be prevailing moving forward. I mean, the global education landscape is flattening, right? I can study anywhere, anytime, on demand, whatever I want, right? So I think that technologies such as how we've managed in such a short time to provide globally accessible education, this is a huge feat. And I fully agree that I believe it was Dr. Wadee who very well articulated that this is not something we would have ever expected just 2 years ago, right? So this has brought us leaps and bounds in terms of flattening accessibility to education and also modularizing education such that I can get curated access to any kinds of learnings, technologies, courses, and things that are interesting to me, but also that will help me develop such skills. And I think lastly, another technology for adoption of these new skills and upskilling is certainly AR and VR. I mean, especially in the current environment, one of the biggest challenges is, of course, handling labs. So lab work, engineering work, which is difficult to do over a Zoom call, for example, but leveraging VR and AR for those virtual interactions will also be a big help in the adoption of skills. So these are some of the technologies I think that would allow broader and easier access to education. There's still a question around, we have the access, but how do we know what skills to focus on? And so coming from an innovation background, from an entrepreneurship background, I think one of the key priorities is to start with the problems first and then find the solutions. And we've got a wide array of technologies that are emerging, but we're not just implementing technology for the sake of technology, right? And regardless of what it is, it needs to solve a very concrete, a very discrete business problem. And so I think the more that universities, especially now, beyond technology, can also help students get involved in the workplace, in these new technologies, the more they can help both themselves and learners have their finger on the pulse, so to speak, of the market, of the innovation ecosystem, of understanding kind of what are those business problems, what are those technical challenges, and what technologies do we need to adopt those skills. So what I would like to point out is that we've kind of got all these different factors around this. And so we can talk about, AI, we can talk about blockchain for trust and transparency for my academic and professional background and all of these technologies. But moving forward, I think the right thing to do is to balance the applications of these technologies. So there's a lot of them. The bigger question is, what do we use? Why do we use it? And how do we use it to help our students adopt those skills? And so I think the right balance is looking at how we can leverage automation, how can we leverage personalization, and how can we tailor that personalization to those teaching methods, which I believe as well Dr. Wadee articulated, depending on the unique preferences and capabilities of the student, whether that's visual, auditory, written, and so forth. So finding a way to take all these technologies, as I've touched on, using automation, using personalization, using those different teaching methods, but understanding that we're not just implementing technology for the sake of technology and connecting that to very concrete, discrete challenges to identify those right solutions. So I know that we're running a bit over time. So in the interest of time, I will leave it at that, but I think that this is a critical area that needs to be explored further.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think I will show the poll results, which again definitely concurs with what Mark had just mentioned. So definitely a lot of interactive content using AI, more of a prescriptive learning, and then also a lot of experiential learning with immersive technologies like virtual reality and virtual labs. So I think these are the two underlying, I would say, options have been selected by the audience, which is largely aligned to the global response, I would say. So I think that's where the new learning method we are heading towards. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have the last question, right? This was the last question.
Yeah, this is the last question.
Okay.
So thank you for all our panelists and for this interesting discussions, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Rasha. Wonderful to have you. And I think with that, we'll just quickly do the last poll before we move into an individual speaking session. So let's have a quick poll before we, wind up the panel. And thank you once again, all the panel speakers. I guess Mark will stay on for an individual session. Definitely Dr. Wadee and Dr. Muhammad, you're most welcome to continue with us, and definitely we will continue with the individual sessions. Thanks a lot for all your contribution to the panel today.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdurrahman, for the invitation. Thank you.
Welcome back, Dr. Wadee.
We hope, inshallah, that we will have a chance to meet again in some fruitful talk and discussions just like today. Great.
Absolutely. We plan to conduct many more such webinars aligned towards the similar pedagogical and technological needs of the local community, I would say. Definitely. So we'll speak soon with you. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So with that, we'll end the poll. The third poll, I would like to show the results. So you can see, for example, there's a lot of response from the audience that university should offer micro degrees. Definitely with the job markets, being coming as Dr. Wadee mentioned, for example, something typical for drone technology. So so these are some of the I think takeaways for the folks from the ministry if they are on the call on the webinar. So definitely, I would say a strong demand for such is being discussed. So you can see 45% strongly agree and 37% agree on that. So thank you for the poll. And now I will again start the first round of session today. So let me invite the first speaker, for example, on the call. So I would like to invite Zelka from Shaikh. We are most welcome to have you on board again. Just I'm switching off my video just to take control of the bandwidth. But good to listen to the next 15 minutes from you, Zelka. All the best.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much for coming. I think that we'll switch gears a little bit because I'm going to be showing you some of the very cool software that schools around the world are using for education. ShareCareU is a medical animation software, and it started development nearly 10 years ago. And since then, it's been used in a lot of hospitals in the US as well as Canada. And also a lot of medical and teaching schools are using it as well. So I know that, the question here is centered around online learning when it comes to pandemic, but we have certainly started way before that. And just to give you an example of some of the top schools, I know that at the beginning of your session, you were talking about, the mission of the educational minister in Saudi Arabia, wanting to have some of your schools as top schools in the world. So I'm definitely here to kind of share some of the insights of what some of the top schools, medical schools particularly around the world are using. So with that, I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see and follow along. And I hope you are able to see it. Are you able to see the screen? You can just type yes.
Yes, we can see that.
Perfect. All right.
That's clear.
Beautiful. Okay, so 3 things we're going to talk about today that I want to show you is how we are using technology to teach more effectively. So there were a lot of buzzwords being mentioned earlier: virtual reality, augmented reality, but also, I mean, just simply, you know, desktop software, using the software on your computer, on your iPads, and your phones, for example. How is all of that changing the way that we learn? And also, you know, that experiential learning element around teaching specifically, and I'll give you examples around anatomy and physiology, but this can be applied to any particular field. So leveraging elements of interacting with the content versus just passively watching or listening. And then I'll also give you some evidence in terms of case studies. So what did these educational institutions that worked with us discover, and what were their findings and their insights in leveraging the software? So as you know, I mean, we spent the first hour or so of this time together. We talked about how the educational landscape is changing. There is obviously a shift to virtual education. So I am based in Canada, and all the schools in Canada right now have shifted to online learning, everything from kindergarten all the way to, you know, PhD programs. So that's obviously affected how the professors are creating their content and how the students are consuming the content. Also, I think that in a lot of schools, even before the pandemic, the introduction of smart technology was being leveraged and adopted depending on different types of schools. I would say that specifically North America, a lot of smart board technology was being introduced in the classrooms. Also, you know, Google Classrooms and iPads were being introduced. So to give you an example, schools like Harvard have been giving the actual iPads to their students with preloaded software for them to learn. So almost like digital textbooks, and also interactive content. So, you know, self-testing tools have become more and more important. And then also, I would say that students' learning styles are changing. So when I was in you know, pre-med program, we used to study exclusively through textbooks. And now students have the luxury of actually seeing and feeling the content, and not just looking at a picture. They can actually interact with the organs. So here in the top right-hand corner, you can see an example of what augmented reality heart looks like, where they can superimpose it over a live environment and interact with it. So with this particular heart, they can rotate it in 360 degrees. They can dissect it with their finger and see what it looks like inside, and they can feel it, you know, the blood pumping, and they can manipulate all of those elements simply through their iPads. So I, rather than telling you myself in terms of how educators are using it, I do have a video from a Yale student in terms of how they've incorporated specifically our software in their classroom. So I'll just play that for you guys.
I'm Mary Ruggieri, and I'm a physician assistant in Texas and a graduate of the Yale School of Medicine PA Online program. It's clear that the classroom and educational landscape as we know it is changing, from chalkboards and textbooks to smartboards and computers. And this change has been even more apparent with the current need for a quick shift to virtual learning across all levels of education, adapting curriculum from an in-person model to an online platform. But with this shift creates opportunity for advanced teaching methods and the utilization of technology to enhance learning. ShareCare U makes this transition easy. With this platform, not only can I show students a beating heart, but I can rotate it. And together, we can go inside it. I can slow it down or speed it up. I can show them how the heart function changes with heart failure or a leaky valve, or how the electrical activity differs with AFib. Not only can we explore organs in ways that textbooks and models don't allow, but I can do this with them in real time. or record pieces of content for asynchronous use. I can take screenshots and video clips to enhance my lecture slides or incorporate into my assessments, all in one place. ShareCare U takes visual and experiential learning to a new level.
So this is just an example, and I hope that with all the internet bandwidths, you guys can catch that. But if you didn't hear some of the images that have been shown. So essentially, this is just one example of how technology is being leveraged specifically in medical learning. But this particular software that we're going to talk about today has been developed with the vision of being almost like a Google Maps of the human body, where you can travel within the human organs, explore them, reveal different layers, see them from different angles. And I think that in the States, specifically in Canada, when you're learning, you can learn through cadavers, which obviously are super expensive. And also when you work with a cadaver, let's say organ, they are inanimate. So you can't really see what they're like in their functioning state. So you can't see what lungs look like when you take a breath. But this technology allows you to do exactly that. So you could see the organs in their live state and what they look like. Also, the beauty of this is that you could really personalize the story that you want to tell. So whether you're teaching a kindergarten class or if you're teaching a PhD program, what matters is that the content is actually medically accurate. And as a professor or as a teacher, you can customize the story you want to tell. So I have 3 children, and they're all young, but they play with the software. And my 5-year-old knows what a spleen looks like and what a lung looks like. And I think that for her level of understanding, that's sufficient. But also, you know, we have cardiologists who work with us, and they need a lot more detail than just being able to recognize the content. So depending on your level of sophistication and also the content that you want to include and learn and conquer, the software enables you to do exactly that. And then finally, I know that in the previous session, you guys talked about experiential learning. So being able to interact with the content with your own 2 hands is really what enables you to remember the information and the content a lot better than just sitting in the lecture and listening to a professor. And as I mentioned, this was used and developed prior to the pandemic. So the way that professors have been using it, even in live sessions, is that they would have it on their computer and project it on a screen for the students to watch. And then they would dissect it so the students can actually take notes, and then they can go home and learn on their own computers or their own iPads as well. So one of the things I want to point out is that we work with very, very specialized artists who are, you know, poached from Disney and Pixar, and they have animation experience and game design experience. And here you could see kind of how the software has been designed to literally look and feel like a video game, where you can go inside the organs. So here we're inside the colon, so you could see it in 360 degrees. You can move through the software as quickly or as slowly as you'd like, but it enables you to see different functionalities, different styles, explanations of what a particular organ does, and then also see it from within itself from many different angles. You can add your own text. If you're a professor, you can record your own lecture. So it's literally as easy as recording something on your iPhone. You click the record button in the professional version, and your video and your audio are integrated, and you can make your own lecture using this. And when you click stop, the video file is created, and you can email it to your students or post it online. Or you can even share it through social media as well, which a lot of the folks who use our software have done. So depending on whether you are a teacher or an educator or a professor or a student, you might have different needs when it comes to this kind of software. And we're definitely trying to enable the software to do both. So for educators, it's important that they can create these quick lessons plans, that it's very easy for them to use it, and that they can actually capture the attention of the students. Because I remember as a student, I used to fall asleep in while reading a lot of my textbooks. And I think that if I'm actually playing with the software and if I'm doing it, I'm a lot more likely to be engaged. And also they say, you know, picture's worth 1,000 words. So being able to actually visually see this, it's a lot quicker for you to understand it than trying to read through the content yourself or being explained. I think one of the easiest things to, I guess, anecdotes here is that one of the doctors that came to us has used this software, and he said, I've been performing this type of surgery for over 30 years. And day in and day out, I'm explaining what a stent surgery is to patients who are scared about what is going on with their heart. And using your software, I'm able to explain it in 30 seconds or less. They see it, they understand it, and their anxiety levels also decrease. So being able to show somebody what's going on in their body is really what can make a big, big difference in understanding and then ultimately in outcomes too. So just to mention, I know we talked about some of the top schools in the world. Our software is not just being used for schools, but also it's being used for the entertainment industry as well. So we work with CNN, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Oz, a lot of the big celebrity doctors in the States and their shows, because the software is so visual and it's easy to adapt. And also with a lot of programs around the world as well. So this is just a quick snapshot, but what we haven't included here is that a lot of our clients are also obviously hospital systems and pharmaceuticals as well. And here are just some of the examples of how it's being introduced in by the entertainment industry and television networks. So in the top left-hand corner, you could see Dr. Oz standing there with Katie Couric, and she's using the virtual reality headset, and they're standing inside of the human lungs. And the bluish tinge is what a breath looks like on the alveoli level. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who is standing inside of the skin, and he's explaining what happens underneath the skin. Dr. Cottle, who's talking about oncology, and then Dr. Oz in the bottom right-hand corner talking about bone density and health. So you can see how these visuals are also being used for mass education and for mass messaging, and the portion that you can customize and learn as educators is the story that you want to tell. You can superimpose that story using our visuals as well. And I see that there's some questions there. I don't know if any of them apply to me, but we can address that very soon. Oops. And so one other example that I wanted to show you is how breaking language barriers is important to learning. So here is an example where we worked with a non-for-profit organization that was working with a community in Kenya. And this particular community had a very, very high incidence of smoke inhalation and COPD and asthma incidents. And the hypothesis was that they were cooking all of their meals inside of their huts, and they were inhaling smoke constantly. And so we worked with this non-for-profit organization, and we brought the software both in virtual reality and on the computers for them to see what happens inside your body when you inhale a lot of smoke, and how that over time, that progression affects your lung health and what kind of damage it causes. And a lot of their physicians and their healthcare professionals did not speak English. But once they saw it in the software, they were able to understand what's happening. And they, promised that they will be recommending to their entire community to stop cooking inside their huts and to cook outside. So again, just a very powerful example of how seeing something is believing, and how, understanding it can really change your lifestyle and your health for the better. And I know that we talked about, virtual reality and a lot of different formats here, but the key to technology is really understanding what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and then how are you going to accomplish that. So virtual reality has been used, at least on our end, for many different ways. So hospitals are using it, as an entertainment factor for the patients, and also for teaching their medical staff. I would say that universities have used our virtual reality for recruitment. So when they're trying to attract the attention of the students and their parents, when they visit the campus, they want to show them how cool and innovative their live labs are. And so this is something that they make available during the recruitment session. And they're also using it for in-lab sessions as well. I would say, it's also been used in museums about the human body. So a lot of different ways to use virtual reality element here in terms of wanting to attract attention and making a big splash and a big statement. But when you think about making it more practical, I think it's also important to not to forget to incorporate simpler modes and most common and accessible modes of using the things like tablets and iPads, and also your personal computers, your PCs and Macs as well, because this is still what majority of the population still has access to versus the virtual reality headsets. So that's why we think it's important to kind of have facets of all three. And just wanted to mention, in the image in the middle with the girl, that's actually, a professor using the software to explain what inside the heart looks like. And then, there's definitely one of the things that I wanted to bring up here is that there's academic studies that are coming out now that are showing the effects of virtual reality specifically on education. So if you're interested, you can email me and I would be happy to provide it for you. But here are two studies, specifically Yale School of Medicine used our software, and they published a study and findings of what students were saying about it and how it improved their learning. So key thing here is that 86% of the students said that they had a stronger understanding of the content while they were using U. And again, the professor in this instance was using it in the classroom for online learning, and then students used it on their own on their iPads at home to study. And then the second study here is by University of Toronto, Tel Aviv University, and Sick Kids Toronto, where they used it for educating their physicians who were attending. And here they showed that nearly 25% of students who used it remembered the information better than the ones who didn't use it. So again, just early stages of great progress in showing how it could impact educational sector. And lastly, to mention here is that our software has been used as an example in a TEDx talk as a best-in-class educational software in virtual reality. We've had very early successes of, in the first 3 months of launching, we had over 200,000 downloads globally around the world. So not just English speakers, but many other visual learners, and has a very high rating as well. So just, we are just getting started. The software did launch late last year, but our mission is every quarter, we're going to be updating new information. So adding new tools, new diseases, and new information within the software. So it's going to continue to grow and evolve. And one of the things that I wanted to mention here is that we are adding in new systems as well. So here in the bottom, you could see the development of the human brain and some of the scans of a live brain. And I'll show you what that looks like. And also, you know, in the top right-hand corner, you could see the complexity of the labeling system as well as the overview. So one of the features that we're adding is that you can click on each of these and you can hear how they're pronounced and what they do. So the text can also be voiced over as well. And here, I don't think that it's going to work. It won't work, but you will, in the newest version, be able to interact with the brain and see what it looks like as you interact with it. And then the last thing I want to say, kind of close it off with, is rather, again, than hearing from me, I wanted you to hear from a professor who has used it at Yale as well, and how it impacted her students.
When I talk about the biggest breakthrough that I've experienced using ShareCare in the classroom, I think it has really come from student feedback. I hear time after time that students say, I thought I understood a concept, and then I saw it in action. I saw this 3D model that was moving, and I saw the different enzymes going and how they interact, or I saw COPD and how it evolves over time in lungs. They say, now I understand it at a whole new level that I didn't know was possible. My entire life, I've been studying in textbooks. I've been trying to integrate this information into new knowledge. And then now all of a sudden, it makes sense. And I understand it on a level that I didn't know was possible before. And I continue to retain that information. They say that when they learn new concepts, they don't go back to visualizing what they saw in the textbook. They go back to that model and they start seeing it working in their head, seeing it all come together. And that really helps them ground that new information that they're getting and those new concepts that they're getting in future classes.
A textbook can only show you so much. With ShareCare, not only can it help students with general anatomy, visualizing the organs and their relationship to one another in the body, but also the physiology. For example, being able to see how AFib changes the electrical impulses of the heart and how that contributes to a greater risk of stroke. They didn't have to just memorize this, they saw it. There's a definite leap in understanding and retention with this type of learning.
So that's it. I hope that, you know, some of these examples inspired you to think differently about learning and to think differently about incorporation of technology and how to leverage it. And if you are interested in trying, you can go to our website and use the code that you see on the screen, GTSA25, if you are interested in trying it out and getting a discount while you're at it. So with that said, just want to thank you for your time. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them at this point. And let's see. All right.
Thank you, Zelka, for the wonderful presentation and demo. I think the participants are really excited to get a handle of the ShareCare and visit the website. So all the best to you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Now I would like to invite Mark from EduChain, CEO of EduChain, and Mark, the floor is open to you now.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Abdul Rehman. So, everyone, so I want to very briefly review a very pressing topic that I touched on earlier in the panel, which is continuity across graduations to employment between universities and graduates, right? So many universities' operations have been impacted because they lack digital readiness. And I think over the last year, we've seen how adaptable we all really are. Since then, naturally, many graduations have been postponed or canceled, and student services is very often struggling to process requests. So today I want to talk about the students and alumni that require access to their degrees and their transcripts for life-changing events, right? This could be internships, jobs, graduate schools, or more, which is being significantly disrupted during the current time. So the question I want to ask is, well, what would need to happen to ensure that these students are taken care of? And so with that said, I'd like to share my screen and take you through some of the work that we've been doing with universities in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates to address this issue. So I just want to ask, is it possible to share my screen here? I'm looking to do that, but I can't see the option. Here it is, perfect. So let me pull that up now. So as we ask ourselves this question, I want to start with a statement. That statement is that academic reliance on paper has been proven unsustainable, right? So we've seen disruptions to students and graduates for receiving and sharing their documents, for job opportunities, for academic opportunities. We've seen challenges around the registrar's office attempting to process paper documents and get them to the students in an era of no contact. And we've also seen increasing reputation damage from fake degrees, fraudulent documents as everything goes digital in unofficial formats, which is hurting our students and graduates in the hiring process. So based on our experience in doing this for many universities in the UAE and Saudi Arabia now, we've seen that the real solution lies in applying blockchain technology for securely issuing any kind of digital document, whether it's a diploma, whether it's a transcript. This is the first step for institutions in going digital. And so this opens the doors to a lot of the conversations we had earlier today around micro-credentials, badging, modular learning, highlighting key learning outcomes, and finding a new digital channel, not just to help serve students securely and remotely, but also to build on top of these digital foundations and offer new tools that can help students become more hireable, embedding key learning outcomes, embedding micro-credentials, badges, extracurricular activities, reference letters, all into one digital, verifiable online portfolio that they can share with anyone, anywhere, anytime. And so this is what we've been doing over the past couple of years before all of this happened with leading universities, providing access to hundreds of thousands of students. And so we've seen that now really the case for change is now. So in a nutshell, what we do is we enable the secure issuance, sharing, and verification of blockchain secured credentials. We integrate digital applications into the university to help the registrar's office go paperless, automate their workflow, and enhance that user experience for their students, and helping serve students securely and safely and giving them the tools they need to be able to access those life-changing events, whether it's getting hired for a new job or an internship or pursuing academic opportunities. So with that said, I'd like to take you through very quickly, in the interest of time, a little snapshot of what some of that entails, and then give you one or two live examples of how this is working now for universities in digitizing their graduations and giving students digital credentials. So the first is we integrate the publisher application to automate the issuance of digital diplomas, certificates, letters, badges, you name it, any kind of documentation or record from the university to the student or to the alumni to their academic passport. This is a digital wallet which has all of their documents from all of their time at the institution, all of their academic accomplishments in one place, which they can then share seamlessly online through an online link, and a verification portal for any employers or recipients of those documents to verify them in real time without ever needing to contact the issuer. So they don't need to email the registrar, make any phone calls. That automation is there and the verification is instant. So with that said, I'll very quickly skim through this and we'll jump right into the live example before we take questions. We've got the publisher to issue the documents. We manage all of this. We manage all the data. You can handle the issuance of a single document, of 100 documents, or tens of thousands of documents at once. We have the academic passport, which aggregates all of those in one place. And what we've seen students do, and I'll share an example of this, is students are taking their online link, with their diploma, their transcript, and all their letters and certificates, and all of these digital official documents. They're creating a unique link, such as uaeuniversity.ac.ae, and adding that link to their resume. So not only are they showcasing their professional accomplishments, but they're also creating a link in their resume that allows anybody to access and view and verify in real time their academic accomplishments. So this is something that they've been using for job opportunities and other academic opportunities. And so lastly, we've eliminated the fraud and the degree issues and the reputational damage to these institutions by creating verification portals that eliminates any kind of modification of the document. So being able to verify with 100% accuracy as an employer without needing to contact anyone in real time. So with that said, I think the benefits we can come back to later. I'd really like to share with you, while I still have the time, an example of what this looks like. And so if you can see my screen, here we've got an example of the Passport application, which is the digital wallet for the student to access all of their documents in real time. What they can do from here is they can download, share, and manage these documents and create shared links with a password or an expiry date that show all of their accomplishments in a single place, right? Whether it's the transcripts, whether it's the letters, the certificates and diplomas and so forth. And these are being verified in real time in the browser. So this is actually checking to make sure that this was issued by the institution, that it hasn't been modified, it hasn't been revoked, and it hasn't been expired. And it adds additional information which can be customized associated with that document. So a great example of this is Khalifa University. For example, here we have a transcript, a diploma that students received, and they can create a shared link which shows exactly what they've received and their accomplishments. And so this is something we've done fully in English and in Arabic, including the verification steps to help any kind of employer to verify the documents of the graduates, and also verify these documents through the online portals. Now, this is step one, I would say, and looking to the future, there's a lot that can be done here. I mean, number one, the priority for institutions now is to help bridge the gap between the e-learning that's currently taking place and the capabilities and future skills that students are developing, and getting that bridge between those skills and the employers and the workforce that are looking to acquire those skills. So finding a way to showcase these in a digital format that can be verified without any doubts by the employer, but also using this opportunity as a way not just to digitize what we already have, such as a traditional transcript, but also to use this opportunity as digital to embed additional information, right? Not only can we show badges and certificates from clubs I participated in, from sports I did, from activities I did that enhance my portfolio as a candidate, all the way to the key learning outcomes in terms of what did I learn in preparatory mathematics I, right? What does that mean? What is preparatory chemistry? What did I learn? What did I do? Being able to embed that kind of information becomes very real and very possible to do once we move from a paper to a digital format. And so I alluded to this here, but we can customize fields, talk about different learning outcomes, embed data with our documents so that when a student shares a link such as this in their resume, they're able to show much more balanced information, much more balanced accomplishments to prospective employers than they could with a scanned copy of a transcript that has to go through a lengthy verification process. So this is just a very brief sneak peek of what that looks like. This is something that's being applied around the world. And so I think that this is something really important to have a conversation around. So moving back to the presentation, we've discussed a couple of the benefits already, but naturally, one of the things that we're doing is helping the academic administration go paperless and integrate with what they're doing now. So we can automate that workflow. As soon as I need something as a student, I have a job application tomorrow, I need my transcripts, my diplomas, all my records right on hand so I can add them in my resume or in the HR portal. I can click a button and request all those documents and get them right away, right? I don't have to wait several days or processing business days to receive those documents. I can get them right now, right here, and the administration doesn't have to do any manual intervention. So this is part of reducing costs and streamlining those processes. And lastly, of course, is especially now as we're seeing this increasing fraud, improving security and improving the brand security of the university has also become very important in terms of not just providing opportunities for the students, but making sure those opportunities aren't devalued by others who are creating fake documents under the same university name. So not only how can we create opportunities for the students, but how can we preserve those such that they're able to really showcase the value and the effort that they put into their academic accomplishments. So with that said, I know that I've taken you through a lot of detail. The point is not to confuse you, but to provide just a glimpse of what we're working on with some of these universities and kind of provide some food for thought in terms of the opportunities and what can be possible moving forward, not just from going digital, but building on those foundations. And I'll leave off with this in terms of the future opportunities. So with those same institutions, we're looking at things like digital attestation, seamless credit transfers between universities, automating equivalencies. So going digital and being able to automate equivalencies between an A+ and an 80% and a 3.7 GPA, being able to automate that digitally, protecting intellectual property, modularizing credentials to show the learning outcomes, not just the document, as I mentioned, and also digital badging to help represent those small things that individually don't look like a lot of work, a single course, a single program, a single workshop, but all together provide a much more holistic and much more comprehensive portfolio of a student's academic accomplishments. So that's everything from my side. I'd like to leave off on that. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll check now to see if there's any questions from the attendees. So I see one question here from an anonymous attendee. Is this solution based on block certs? So no, this is not based on block certs. This is something we started off around the same time as block certs in 2016. We've built a blockchain network between all the universities we mentioned before. So the unique thing about this is all these universities, such as the University of Business and Technology, the Islamic University of Medina, UAE University, Zayed University, etc., these are all connected on the same blockchain network. And so I didn't talk about the technology piece here a lot. I think you heard me talk about solving a business problem first, and that's really what we're doing from a business case perspective. But the technology behind this is such that the blockchain network between all these universities is the verification layer on which all of these applications sit on top of. So the publisher, the academic passport, the verification portal, all three of these applications are integrated with each other and integrated with the blockchain network to be able to provide that official stamp of authenticity and confirming that, yes, this university issued this document or this badge, and this is the data and it hasn't been tampered with. Perfect. Well, that looks like all the questions. There's anything else. If there's anything else, happy to address further. Otherwise, thank you all very much for your time in the panel and for taking the time to view our presentations today.
Thank you, Mark, for the wonderful presentation, short and crisp to the point. Definitely, I think the participants have enjoyed the touchless, economy we just started, but definitely the fact is that the EduChain was being implemented well before the pandemic. So I think that's a good reference for EduChain, and wish you all the best. Thank you, Mark, once again.
Thank you very much.
With this, I would like to invite Dr. Heba and Dr. Khatija from Praxi Labs to look into the virtual labs that's being discussed this webinar. And definitely with that, I would also suggest that definitely these virtual labs are aligned a lot of content to, for example, secondary or post-secondary and to different grade levels. Definitely more from Dr. Khadija and the team.
Thanks, Abdurrahman, for the introduction. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, amazing. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here with you all. And such amazing and innovative speakers and companies we've heard today. So let me start by just taking a moment and seeing together how the digital transformation has disrupted our sector, which is the education sector. So of course, my colleagues have talked already about this, but I'll quickly focus on some points here that I wanted to share with you. So over the past decades, we've seen platforms and we've seen a lot of investment put in platforms, helping the education process be more effective and more efficient, for example, by the use of learning management systems, content, and assessment. But also, recently, a lot of shifts have gone to more extreme approaches in new learning and new teaching approaches, such as the online universities. These have been serving millions of students, going towards adaptive learning platforms, giving us personalized learning for each student, and of course, to the MOOCs, which are giving us open online courses, and I think all of us here have used it at some point in time. So I just put this here to see and to look together and see what are the aspect that is really missing here, especially for science education and for science students. So to tell you that, it's mainly the lab work. So looking at these categories, the lab work, which is a very significant and very major element in science education, is yet not being disrupted in the same sense. And although they've been started in the 19th century, we are still using the traditional and the real labs in the same way that we've been using them since then. So the question I'm going to be answering for you today over my presentation is, are there really problems that we need to solve? Or is it just that we need to digitally transform them to go with the trend? So this is very important to first answer. And this is basically the answer. The simple answer is yes. There are limitations and there are a lot of challenges affecting students and affecting education institutions today when they go to the real lab. So as an academic myself, as a professor at the university, I've seen students, I've seen my colleagues struggling to find the time for the students to enter the lab. And when they are there, they need to get everything right from the first time. They need to learn the concepts, they need to learn the procedures, they need to take care of the safety instruction, they need to literally do everything from the first time, because usually it's very rare, it's very challenging to give them the ability to do the same experiment multiple times because of the time, because of the cost, because of the safety constraints. And then the third very important problem as well for the students, over the last years, a lot of surveys with these students exactly found that when they are waiting for their colleagues to finish and for their turn to come, or for the results to be ready, which sometimes takes hours, they feel a lot of bored. They are bored and they lose motivation and lose enthusiasm to continue the lab work and to continue the experiment and understand the concepts at hand. So this is also risky towards and increasing the STEM dropout rates that we are currently facing. But on the other side, if we take the education institution and we try to see what they are facing, we'll see that most of them, the most important and most constrained is the safety hazards that we all know, especially with biology experiments. For instance, Dr. Hiba will be talking to us about them. In some experiments like gel electrophoresis or other experiments that contain hazardous substances, that contain cancerous substances or radiation, this is very risky for the whole lab and not even for the student himself. And then adding to that, the second problem and second big challenge for universities, and not even only in the Middle East and emerging, for example, countries, it's also in advanced countries, the very high running costs. And we are not talking about construction costs because we are not replacing the real labs, but only about the maintenance costs of every year. You need to be paying almost an average of $300,000. And that's not an easy number to be affordable by every university and every school in the region. So when we see all these limitations and when we try to see how can we solve them, that is when virtual labs were founded with the aim of overcoming these challenges. And let's see in a nutshell, how we define a virtual lab. It's basically a software program or a software platform that's aiming at simulating the real lab environment to get the students or the users in general to practice these experiments anytime and from anywhere. So universities and people interested in this area, they had already hypotheses and they were knowing and thinking of the benefits of the virtual labs before starting. But of course, they needed to validate it. And that's when in 2011 and later on, a lot of studies in the UK especially, and also in India, a lot of studies have been done here in the UK, in Loughborough University, in Open University, and in Queen Mary, for example. The studies went to see how the virtual labs, if used before going into the real lab, would affect the students. And it was very interesting to see how this was happening. They were seeing that when students were practicing a lot of times before going to the real lab, they knew everything literally around them. They knew the tools, the equipment, they know the procedure itself, they know the safety instructions. So they are going there and only to practice really inside the real lab, and that increased their performance by almost 60%. And that was a huge difference, of course. And then not only the performance, but when they went to the real lab, they did less mistakes and they needed less time because, again, they know everything. And that already affected their motivation and their retention, completely improving the learning experience and improving this by 80%. And this was very important to know for universities to prove that we really need to use virtual labs. So going from the quantitative data to see some qualitative data, as of course, it's very important to understand that students are the ones who are going to use this tool. So are they really satisfied with it? Do they see these benefits or not? So I've gathered some of the comments here, some of the feedback of the students, and wanted to share it with you. Of course, talking first thing about the access. So flexible access that we have literally from anywhere we are, no constraints on the time, whether it's at night or in the morning. The repetitive prompts that we can do, first, it made them confident more and it made them more motivated, as I said. But also, a very important aspect, which is point number 2 here, it's very interesting to see how they were focused on the learning part. So rather than when you go to the real lab, you need to focus on the technical problem or the safety, you are focused only on the learning aspect and on understanding the concept and what you are exactly doing. And another point, which was very obvious, especially in the physics experiment, we all know that we need to change specific variables to understand the experiment. So for instance, changing the liquid from honey to oil, or things like that. In a virtual lab, you can do this and you can see the results immediately in several seconds, rather than having again to wait or do more effort and time in the real lab. So this is just a summary or an example of what students had to say about virtual lab and how it was helping them. So as I've said, this is all have been there before the COVID, before anything happened, but it was there as a complementary solution. But even after the COVID and literally during the COVID, what happened is it was the only solution. Rather than being complementing to the real lab, this was the only way that students and universities around the world were able to continue their education. That's why it was recognized by different organizations around the world, showing that we are changing the way students are learning, we're changing the way of the education in the future. It's very important that we understand that COVID is not just teaching us a lesson that is now and it will end. It's something that we need to learn. It's here to stay. E-learning is not a luxury anymore. It's very important that we all have a solution in place, whether it's for virtual classes, whether it's for the assessment, whether it's for the virtual labs. We need to be ready for anything like that. And even after COVID, we need to be continuing using them for the other benefits that I've mentioned here. So quickly, before handing over to my colleague, Dr. Hiba, to give you an interesting demonstration on how Praxi Labs is doing that, I hope that we can work with you all here to benefit you like we are benefiting lots of universities around the world from 5 different continents. And of course, you're invited to use our code to go on the website, subscribe for yourself as a professor or even through the university you are working at. And I'll be finalizing here. Thank you. And here you go, Dr. Hiba.
Yeah, hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Khadija. Thank you for having me today. I really enjoyed all the valuable talks. I'm Hiba Alwi, the Biology Science Director at Praxi Labs. I'm happy to be here with you today to talk to you about the role of lab in science teaching. I'm going to share my screen now. And after that, I'm going to introduce you to the features of our lab, our virtual lab at Praxi Labs. And show you some of our experiments, the simulations we're doing. So we're going to talk about the role of lab work in science education. First of all, when I started my job as a demonstrator at the university, I thought about how to make students benefit the most from our lab sessions. And through my observations, and I read a lot about it, I tried to apply all these points. First of all, it enhances the mastery of science subject matter, and that means students can learn better by doing. They actually do things with their own hands, which really increases their interest. So every student, even those who are not really not that into science, they like performing experiments with their own hands. So this is very important, and this leads us to the second point. It allows those students, every single student in the class, can develop scientific reasoning, which is not a very, it's not a very easy thing to introduce to students, but they can learn scientific reasoning through learning by doing the experiments with their own hands. They follow protocols, they learn the basic methods that we use in labs. So they think about questions and how to answer these questions. They think of investigations. They discuss those investigations together. They even think of, they analyze the data that they get out of the experiment, and they can even defend their observations. The third thing is that they understand the complexity and ambiguity of empirical work. It helps them develop intuition and deepen their understanding of concepts. They really understand how, like the nature of science and how the proper way to think of problems or things or phenomena and think of solutions for these things. Of course, lab sessions are the main tools by which you can develop practical skills for students because they use the devices, the tools that we have in the lab. They follow protocols, they learn about basic methodologies. So that's how they develop their practical skills. Labs also cultivate interest in science and in learning science, and interest in something is very important. You cannot learn something without having enough interest for that. So this really leads to increasing and enhancing their cognitive abilities and improving their attitude. So the students can learn critical thinking, they can learn problem solving, they can learn analyzing data, experimental data. They also have, they learn about teamwork because they can perform complex tasks together. They can discuss these things with each other, and they can contribute efficiently to a complete research of their own as a teamwork. They also learn certain attitudes that would it would add a value to their personalities, like curiosity, objectivity. It's very important. They learn precision, confidence, perseverance, satisfaction. All of these things you can really learn very well by performing experiments in lab. So now I'm going to introduce you to our simulations. This is one of our simulations. This is the agarose gel electrophoresis, DNA agarose gel electrophoresis. Let me introduce you first to the lab. The beginning of any experiment, you get instructions on how to use your mouse. We have here the dashboard, these three lines on the upper left of the screen. If I click on the dashboard, I get this black board, which shows you things that you need to perform your simulation or to understand your simulation. This is the document that contains the materials needed, the devices needed, the safety precautions, the steps that you need to follow, the protocol, everything. There is an animated guide, a 1 minute video or 2 minutes video that shows you the whole protocol. You can change the language. We have English and Arabic languages for now. You can add or remove sounds and hints, and I'll talk to you in short about the hints. We also have an enrichment document. These are general data about the experiment the student is performing, like historical, how it was, how the scientist who got out of this experiment thought of it, and all the steps that led to the final experiment he's doing. We also have exercise questions so that the student can go through them. It focuses on the things that are in the learning objectives actually, or the learning outcomes that I need the student to come out with. And they can reload the experiment anytime they need to do that. If I press back here, I go back to the lab. Over here, we have sectioning. These are like the main titles or the main things that the student will go through. So if he needs to repeat something or go back to something, he can just simply like click on the second item and he will go directly to the second item, or he can start all from the beginning. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. So this is our lab. You can use the left click to click on anything and drag anything you want, open, close bottles or anything. And you can use the right click to rotate around the lab. Okay. You can go back at any time you want through this here. You can click right here. You can zoom in and zoom out. And this is very important because we want students to see the details. We focus on details. Everything that you should see in the real lab, you can see right here in the virtual lab. This right here shows hints or the steps that students need to follow in their protocol in details so that they can refer to it whenever needed. So it says here I need to vortex the bacterial culture. Right now I'm going to isolate DNA from this bacterial culture. So I'm going to follow the steps of the protocol. First you have to vortex, and then you can collect 1 milliliter. I'm going to use the pipette. We teach students all the details, like you have to recap bottles, you have to throw away tips, you have to follow sterile techniques. You have to label everything, all of the details that the students need to learn to be able to follow a good protocol. They can learn in this lab. They also get introduced to devices, and we design devices exactly like the ones in the real lab. Messages that they need to take care of during the work. For example, when using gene balance, and so you need to add an equal volume of the tube. You can't put an odd number in there, you have to put an even number. So the students need to learn about that. Now I'm going to set up the centrifuge, just like in the real lab. The timing, the temperature, the RPMs, everything. I'm going to start voices, just like in the real lab. So now it tells me to discard the supernatant. I'm going to discard it in the liquid waste. And then I'm going to just pipette the remainder of the supernatant, which is the fluid above the pellet. That's the pellet is formed because of the centrifuge. And we have a supernatant above. We don't need the supernatant, we need the pellet. The solid waste book opened, and this means I threw away my plastic tip. Now I need to add something. So I type the number that I need to add. I open the bottle. Everything is labeled, of course. Ethanol 50%. This is TSDS solution, which is the solution that I need to use. So I need to uncap it and then pick up the correct pipette, add the correct tip to the pipette, and withdraw the solution and put it in the 1.5 milliliter tube. I cannot go further to the next step until I recap the bottle back again. I'm going to show you an example of another experiment we have. This is here gel electrophoresis. I'm like in the middle of the experiment now. I just wanted you to see how we focus on details. I'm now going to load the gel, and in loading the gel, it should zoom into the gel and show the samples. Of course, that was in the first sample. It did not show in the second sample, but we showed the students the wells and how the sample should go exactly inside the well, not above, and how he should not penetrate, and all these details that the students need to learn very well before they apply or use the gel on their own. Okay, so afterwards, after the student completes the experiment or the simulation, the student can answer questions, as I said before, and then the student can refer to the data present in the files, make sure everything is correct. The student gets the result of the experiment he just performed, and he can either discuss the results with his mentor, or he can analyze the data and give the results to his mentor directly. What I like about the virtual lab really is being able to tell the students all the remarks that they need to take care of before going into a real lab. And the most important thing for me is the safety precautions. For example, here in this agarose gel electrophoresis, when preparing the agarose gel, we use a carcinogenic substance. So we tell the students in this lab, in the virtual lab, that they have to take care and they have to wear gloves and so on. Also, when using flames in some experiments, we tell them the precautions that they need to take care of when using flames. So now I guess I loaded all the samples. I should close the agarose, the tank. I'm going to zoom out. This is what happens when when there is a delay, when I do not perform the step. This gray flash light turns on, so that we remind the student of what he needs to do. Now I need to turn on the electrophoresis device. Oh, I did not put the cooling pad. Okay, so I'm supposed to adjust it to 100 volts. And then run. It shows you here these bubbles, like it's exactly like in the real lab, and the band's moving. Okay, so now I wanted to show you the end of the experiment. It's going to show the gel, the look of the gel at the end with the results that the students can interpret later on. Now I'm done with the simulation, and I'll be happy to receive any questions that I can respond to.
Abdurrahman, I think we are done, so we can move to the next presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Khadija and Dr. Heba. Wonderful to have both of you on the on the Praxi Lab. I think there's a lot of traction I'm getting regarding the inquiries from the participants. I got some message as well. So thank you. We'll get back to you with some more details on the Praxi Labs, how the licensing is, it free, and what kind of pricing info. So keep tuned to our next mail on that, especially from the pricing point. And just to thank you, Dr. Khadija and Dr. Heba, once again.
Thanks a lot, Abdurrahman, for the
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Mr. Nicholas and Mr. Iskander from HTC, and we would like to see how VR can provide immersive learning platform for training, and plus more like virtual fairs and conferences to go beyond the education. So a lot of such activities we can see. So over to you, Nicholas and Iskander. let's see what HTC brings on the virtual reality.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abdulrahman, and thank you as well for inviting us to this very, very, I would say, exhaustive and very rich content with this webinar. So basically, HTC, we're a hardware and software provider in the virtual reality world, I would say. The brand is widely recognized as a pioneer of the extended reality XR industry. We have our office based in Dubai for the Middle East branch. So myself, I'm managing the entire Europe and Middle East region, and supported here on the call by my colleague leading the Middle East branch for HTC. So basically, we combine the best in hardware, software platforms and services to provide a complete professional-grade solution, enabling enterprise and universities, research center as well, to accelerate training, strengthen the collaboration, and engage user thanks to the power of the immersion. This is how we see it. So our initial markets are the automotive, military and defense, the aerospace, oil and gas, and the education market, which is one of the most actually demanding area for a virtual reality solution, being part of the digitalization path taken by our customers. So in Europe, we work closely with universities, especially in Germany, UK, France, and Poland, where we have deployed several VR projects. So it means that for us, virtual reality in education is not a buzzword anymore. It's concrete deployment that we see operating across our customers. And in the Middle East, we work and we started deploying some very, very strategic projects with, especially in the UAE, with the Sharjah University, American University of Dubai, Higher College of Technologies, and others. Currently, we're discussing also with several organizations in the education field, I would say, in the whole Middle East region, including Saudi Arabia. So the question is how our customers in the education field use the virtual reality. So from our experience, the content part is crucial, I would say. And as HTC, our core business model is based on the headset, on the hardware solution. So basically two things that we are doing in order to bring the entire solution. The first one is that we are building a strong ecosystem of software providers for training, design, simulation, and remote collaboration. For example, it could be with bespoke software providers able to customize the content according to each customer project, or any key player in the design and modelization industry, such as very known ones like Dassault System, Autodesk, and Siemens, and others, where we have initiated a very strong collaboration, working with them closely on technical side and also on the partnership side, I would say. And the second point is that as HTC company, we're also reselling and designing our own software platforms, enabling distant collaboration, for example, which we will detail a little bit more during this presentation when Nicola will be taking the floor. So some scenarios where we see virtual reality actually is, first of all, I think that VR is bridging, is a real bridge between professional organizations and universities. I think we heard that many times across the different presentations where the question is how to operate the communication between the moment where the student has completed his learning path and the moment where he needs to be operational, in the professional organization, could be an enterprise or a hospital or whatever. So this is where we see virtual reality bringing a real added value. So basically, VR helps to visualize real situation where students can experience themselves, upgrading their skills, collaborating with their teachers, and beyond that, with their colleagues in the future when they will be in the professional world. For example, let's take the example of students learning industrial design. in the automotive and energy field, for example, or student training on medical devices and learning how to cooperate with medical teams during sensitive intervention. So, for example, we have a big project in Germany where nurses need to learn how to communicate with doctors, actually. This is not related to hard skills, let's say, that we're not talking about the operation itself, but more in the communication, how the communication should operate in a very sensitive moment where they need to work on a patient. So this is how we see virtual reality, and now I pass it over to my colleague Nicola, who will detail a little bit more about what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Iskander. Thank you, Abdul Rehman. Actually, just wanted to appreciate the fact that you have invited us, and really honored and privileged to be a part of the session. I couldn't agree more to what Iskander said, but I was also fascinated with what Ms. Zelka from Shaikh, Dr. Khadija, and Dr. Heba spoke about in terms of the integration of AR, VR, and various technology in the current scenario. So with this unprecedented times, I'm sure everyone needs a technological innovation and support to move ahead with the current trend, and that's where we come into the picture. So in order to start, I would like to quote one of this well-known Chinese philosopher called Confucius, where he says, "What I hear, I forget. What I see, what I remember, and what I do, I understand." And this is exactly where VR comes into the picture, and it helps you to do things so that you remember, and in a very fun way, and that's why we call it an edutainment rather than an entertainment for kids. So what I'll quickly do is that I'll just share my screen to basically take you through a presentation. I don't want to make it super long, but I will touch the key parts to the presentation to give you an overview of what we do as HTC and how we support. And in case you have any queries, happy to support you. So basically, when we're talking of enabling what's next, is basically trying to move through these unprecedented times and find out a common ground to help teachers, students, educators, finding ways and platforms to communicate. Now, having said that, we all know that Zoom, Teams are the kind of mode of communication these days, and most of the schools, universities have started using. However, what we realize that although the current norm, we see that as per research, almost 57% of the population in different industries are basically kind of working from home or a hybrid working culture. But what we realize is that 2/3 of the population feel that they're not engaged, and also 40% of the population feel that the face-to-face interaction is more, I would say, deeper, and it's more fruitful versus doing a Zoom or Teams call. Having said that, we obviously in HTC are trying to come up with some kind of solution to make it more realistic, and what we call is XR Suite. So what XR Suite really is basically a combination of multiple platforms to allow educators, students to interact in a virtual environment and in a more interactive environment versus what we are currently doing in Teams or Zoom. So just to give you an understanding, I'll play a short video for you guys to understand what the concept is, and I'll take it forward from there. So. Just want to confirm, Abdul Rehman, was the video visible, or were you saying the wrong screen?
No, it was visible.
It was good.
Sorry?
It was good.
It is good. Okay, perfect. Just to summarize now what XR Suite exactly is. So as you have seen in the video, so it's an online collaboration platform, but catering to different parts of the usage when it comes to mainly schools, colleges, and universities. So how it works is that it's also a multi-platform support. So today, as we had heard in different presentation, that VR is still not scalable. So what we have realized is to make it cross-platform where students can participate via VR headsets, via PC or smartphone. So it's a multi-platform support. So not necessarily you have to use VR, although VR is the most immersive form of hosting this kind of session. It's a single sign-on. So with a single sign-on, you can access multiple platform. Obviously, we have a global server infrastructure in terms of data security and data protection. HTC, from its smartphone background, we have been complying to all these regulations, and we are well protected. Easy connectivity. So we are talking of kind of giving a QR code and a link for you to join through different platforms. And obviously you can customize your avatar and make it look similar to what you exactly look in real life. And obviously, in order to manage this, we do have an enterprise management portal where you can control how to manage multiple people through the VR headsets. Just to give you a glimpse of how exactly a meeting room looks like in a VR situation. So if you see here, you will find a table with obviously a 3D object which you can pull it and through a crowd platform. People can join from multiple geography. So if you see here, people are from California, Taiwan, UK, and when you want to showcase a presentation, a massive screen pops up in front of you, and you can present videos, presentations, and obviously you can recreate the room and brand it with your own branding. And this is something which we support on case-to-case basis, where you can recreate and make an exact replica of your conference room or let's say an auditorium. Just to give you a glimpse, this is basically a platform which is called Engage, and I'm sure in educational institution most of you are familiar with, where you can host let's say annual events, sessions for teachers, for students. So this is again a part of our XR Suite package, and it comes as a by default program within this overall software support. Now, what we see VR usage in education is also from a perspective not only teaching the students, but also teaching teachers, let's say. So this is an example of how students are using VR in schools around the globe. And this is an example of how teachers are being trained in educational institutions. And this is an experiment which we did in one of our partner organization in China, where we had more than 300 teachers participating. And obviously the whole idea is to train teachers, educate them, update them on the new concepts which is emerging with the technology, and keep them updated and aligned on the new trends. When it comes to content, which Iskandar had mentioned, that content really plays a very critical role in obviously using VR or AR per se. So we do have a lot of popular content which is related to science, arts, culture. We have STEM VR lab. We have a 3D organon, which is basically an application for body anatomy. So similarly, even I think Zelka mentioned several applications from medical healthcare, which can be integrated in VR and headsets can be used. And what we understand also is that most of the universities and schools these days are coming up with a concept of a VR lab or a VR, let's say, center, where you can take students, give them a training, and then obviously keep having different sessions for different class group or age bracket. So there is a by default content list what we have in the platform, but apart from that, we do bespoke content. We are working with a lot of ISVs regionally in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, where they are creating curriculum for different schools and universities. And this is something where we come into the picture with an end-to-end solution, not only giving you the hardware, but also exposing you to all these partners whom we have, who can create content for you bespoke. Plus there are off-the-shelf content which people can start off with in order to begin, let's say, the VR phase in their education institution. So as Iskandar had earlier mentioned, our partnership with Jeddah University in Saudi Arabia. We are talking of North Border University there in UAE, Higher College, Sharjah University. We are exploring all these relationship, and we are trying to help them implement some kind of VR, AR, let's say labs and studios inside the educational institution. And this is where how we can support anyone who is interested in implementing VR, knowing more as to how this can be done. We can also support you in organizing a demo for you to understand and get a management buyout before you take a decision. So these are several ways we can help. I'll not take much time in diving into details because it's been a long session, but I'm happy to explore and answer any questions you have. Abdul has been representing us in Saudi Arabia. We are partnering with them. So any questions to him or us, we are happy to answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicholas, for the wonderful presentation. I'm sure definitely there will be a lot of questions will come, and I'm getting a lot of questions usually right now. So I can say definitely there's a lot of demand and a lot of anxiety typically when it comes to the implementation. But as we know, we are here as a technology support, and in terms of the kind of discussions, as you mentioned rightly, to have that discussions before they take the deep dive. How it can be done. It's simple as that, and we have been doing that for sure. So that will help the institutions out in Saudi for to outreach to us, and in terms of any any discussions that we need to have.
Thank you, Abdul. Iskandar, by any chance, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, no, I think we covered many things already. But what I can say from my experience in Saudi Arabia is that many universities actually have already installed in the past different immersive setup, what we call cave system with immersive, let's say, configuration with tracking system and all this very high technological, let's say, setup. And so I feel like in Saudi there's already an experience across the university that I visited in the past with this immersive learning actually. So there's a culture of VR which is already there. And so what we want to do is to develop this and to go to the next step with our headset and with our partners. So we're happy to support on any request or any demand.
Thank you, Iskandar, for your extended support. Definitely, we'll surely get in touch with you, and definitely, with, as you mentioned, with corner caves or with with the HMDs or standalone systems, we have a different setups for each universities. So we'll come back to you on that, as per the demand. And then, as you rightly mentioned, Saudi is one of the few places in the world where have access to technology quite easy. So there's a lot of I would say a lot of I think 6 years back we started talking about VR, but today I think everyone is quite mature. When they say VR, what does it mean? So that knowledge transfer is already done over the past 5 to 6 years. So I think that's quite good right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we end towards the end of the program, and definitely as towards the end, and if you have any certain questions or answer to be asked, we are here to answer you, and we can speak to you, or we can put up on the chat area if there's something specific. And just before we if as a next step, so definitely you will hear from us as a post post this webinar. You'll get a recording, and also you'll get some kind of offers from our partners, as you have seen, for example, today. So there are certain offers with discount codes will be mailed to you as well. So those information will be sent out to you in the mail, and you can get an access to those discount coupons or codes to for example, download the software and be in touch with some of the solutions that you have seen today. Okay, so just to keep that posted to the audience. So that's well coming into the to your inbox early tomorrow morning. Okay, so having said that, so I'm open. We are open for the question and answer session right now. So let's start with the few that comes in. So we'll we'll take one by one. So the first question is, can you please show us your VR lab? I think that question is to, I think to HTC team. Then definitely I'll ask Iskander or I can jump in on that from Khalil Ali. The first question.
Oh, which one? Sorry.
The first open question, because I think some of them have been answered. The open questions right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see Nicholas
in the Q&A section. There's a Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So basically, can you please show us your VR lab? So that's the question, Iskander. So yes, Khalil, what we can do is that together with Abdul, we can share with you some concept ideas of how VR labs have been created. We can give you some, let's say, a pricing idea of tentative projects which we have done to give you an overall view. And then if required, we can have a one-on-one session to take you through all micro level details, because there are a lot of things which we have to factor once we have this kind of session together.
Thank you. Just to add to Nicholas, yes, we can show or share some pictures of the setup, something done, and especially with the corner cave that we have been doing. So we can share those some details with you, Khalil. You can reach out to us after the session. Next question: is it available in Egypt? Can you present in National Research Center in Egypt? I think this is again a question to you. I think to Iskander.
Yeah, Nicholas, please. Thank you.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying is because we are doing current projects in Egypt. So yes, we have partners in Egypt whom we are currently working with. They are based out of Cairo, and we are happy to connect you together to showcase certain solutions. Where again, we are working with certain museums also there. So I need to understand the exact content you want, but I would request maybe a call or a email introducing. Basically, Abdul Rehman can introduce us, and we can take you through a session and connect you to a partner. Anything, Iskander, from your side?
Yeah, I mean, Egypt is one of the market that we have, which is directly managed by the Middle East branch. So it will fall under the responsibility of Nicolas. So he will definitely schedule a call, and I can be part of the call as well if needed, of course.
Very good. Yeah, certainly we'll connect with with the team here at HTC, and then loop in the inquiry. Yep. Yes, Mr. You can ask the question, so you can, for example, you would like to answer. Yep.
Yeah, I see.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Mohammed Goda, you want to ask question live? 1 second. Let us enable the speaker maybe. Mohsin, can we have the audio, or we can promote Mohammed Goda to a panelist, maybe just to let him answer or ask questions. I think you need to speak. That's what I can say. Sure. Asking about the next questions, Shakil. Yes, thanks for your feedback. Lovely feedback. Definitely, we have been showcasing a bit of virtual labs and VR.
Hello.
And definitely, yeah. Go ahead, Doctor.
Dr. Mohammed Goda from Egypt.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm interested in designing the virtual lab for electronics studying. I mean, is it possible to design electronics labs? I mean, electronic components, op-amp, microprocessor, something like this, by your technology?
You mean to say the like PCB, circuits and all those things using?
I would like to explain, for example, the operation of op-amp, operation amplifier, for example, or any circuits.
Right.
Can I design electronics lab using this technology?
Yes, I mean basically in virtual you can design whatever you want, pretty much everything. So it's just a matter of having the assets and the data available. So then behind it, the main question is, what are you planning to do with those components? If it's to help for the design, if it's just a question of visualization, or if it's a question of training, for example. And this is where we will be kind of proposing and suggesting the best hardware and the best content solution. So I would say that thanks to our software provider ecosystem, we can build a solution enabling you to design the right content, the appropriate ones, and then to see what would be the most suitable hardware and headset, which is related to HTC, of course, to visualize and to proceed with the virtual scenario. Does it make sense for you?
Is it available Arabic language or only English language?
Yeah, I mean, it's once again, it's a matter of content at the end. So we can have content available in English. We can have it available in Arabic as well. It's just a matter of having the right software provider who will, let's say, design the right content. Maybe Nicholas, you have an additional comment to that.
Yeah, Mohammed, one answer to your question is that there are certain off-the-shelf content which is currently available, and there are some bespoke content. So what Iskandar is talking of is the bespoke content which will be specifically built for you. Now, when it's specifically built for you, or whatever configuration you require, whatever customization you require in regards to language, everything will be taken care of. But obviously, it's a bespoke content, so it's definitely slightly an expensive affair. When it comes to off-the-shelf content, there are a lot of partners who have off-the-shelf content, and we can guide you to see some solution, but predominantly the solutions will be in English. The Arabic language is something which we need to check if they are coming up in future to add, or if it is available or not. But we can obviously guide you and connect you to the right partner to check both the options of off-shelf as well as bespoke.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So any more questions, audience?
So Abdul, I think we didn't answer this question from Dr. Shakil, I guess. Now I was just checking, and we do have, PwC analysis out here. We have a report, and I'm happy to share with you, and maybe you can pass it on. So it's very interesting. It shows as to why VR is, let's say, more effective. What are the reasons? And also this is based on the case study which they have done on X number of students. So it's very interesting. It's a 48-page report. I'm happy to share with you, and it gives a lot of technical analysis and everything to support.
Yeah, very good. That will be wonderful, because I think this is one of the questions. So most of the, I would say, the department heads or academic deans, they are at this stage where they don't have a ready reference, to analyze, for example, how effective that would be, if they want to go for virtual labs or virtual reality. Yeah.
I think part of the answer had been mentioned earlier in the presentation of one of your partners presenting this virtual lab actually solution. So and
Dr.
they said,
Khadija.
Exactly.
Dr. Khadija, she's there on the call. Yeah,
exactly.
Right,
and it's very interesting because they mentioned as well that operating in virtual, once the students are, let's say, in the real world, 80% of them are already let's say working effectively and operating very effectively because they had this training. So I think that this number is very, very close to what we feel as a virtual reality provider as well. So we see that the knowledge and the acquisition of competences is increasing very, very fast. And any person who have been trained in virtual reality will be operational extremely quickly compared to someone who is, let's say, doing things manually once he's in real life. This is this is, but Nicholas will share a little bit more data and assets related to that a bit later. But I think that this percentage of 80% is very, very close and speaks to us, at least regarding what we commonly see.
I guess we are towards the end of the session. I think we have responded to all the questions. Once again, I think appreciate the whole.
Excuse me,
sure.
Abdurrahman.
Yes, you are there. Okay. Yes, Mohammed.
Is it possible to send more details about your virtual labs? I mean, your presentation.
Sure, we'll be able to send that. I've sent my mail on my chat. So any participants who have any questions, queries regarding any solution we have showcased today, we can be in touch. So we'll arrange for a kind of a follow-up session and share more details, whether it's, for example, some comparative data or about kind of a pricing information, anything, or implementation or kind of a demo session. We will certainly be helpful to do that ASAP.
Another question is how to use it in the classroom. For example, I am working in Blackboard or Moodle or our own LMS. Is it
right?
Is it a component of LMS or just virtual labs?
And I think maybe I would ask STC folks to respond, or I can respond to that. Also, not an issue. Iskandar, Nicholas, you would like to take this? Yeah.
Please, Abdulrahman, if you want to start first.
Okay. So, Dr. Mohammed, definitely, LMS, Moodle, Blackboard, we worked with that for almost 20 years, and we have been building blocks for those, different LMSs. So definitely, that can go as a building block or as an LTI component, right? So whether it's a VR, virtual lab, so we build that integrator, okay, that connector. So you come like how you have a SCOM object, right? So we have been using lesson content as SCOM. So whatever interaction you do under the SCOM, it's all going back to the gradebook in Blackboard. Similarly, whether it's a VR or virtual lab, once you are doing that experience, outside the LMS, the results can go back to your LMS. That's not an issue. Okay, so it's a separate environment technically, but whatever you're experiencing inside of virtual reality or virtual labs, we have built the connectors that can push the data from those environments back into your LMS, whether it's Blackboard or Moodle or Canvas or something else. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I would add that that's the reason why I mentioned actually the partnerships and the importance of this ecosystem that we're building. This is a good example with Edu Solution actually that who is taking care of this connection between LMS and the content actually. So and this is that's the explanation from my side. Is this this kind of partnership which is building the filling the gap with this component and this part.
Because many of the institutions, they have very heavy dependency on the LMS.
Yeah.
So if we provide that experience near to the LMS, like providing education on the Facebook is something like that. So so they'll be happy to have something with a single sign-on with the LMS. They can easily have that content right inside the LMS. With a click, they can launch the VR or any of such application.
Yeah, exactly.
I think thank you everyone. I think we are done with the end of the today's session. I think we have one more user. She's asking, does the virtual lab contain basic pharmacology experiment? I think that's very specific for the Dr. Hiba if she's there on the call.
Dr. Hiba, can
Dr. Hiba, yeah, you can answer this question, specific questions.
Yeah, hi again. You're talking about pharmacology experiments. Yes, we have some pharmacological experiments. They fall within the pharmacology toxicology label. We can send you these experiments, the titles of these experiments, if you wish to see them. If they fall within your curriculum, we can go in for further details.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ibe. I think that's fine. I think we did that. It will be helpful for them. Yeah. Wonderful. I think we are almost crossed half an hour, our allotted times. I would not. There is a lot of participant on towards the end. I think still being extended. I can see a lot of participants still holding on the session with us. So thank you everyone once again, and wish you a wonderful evening for the participants here, and definitely someone who has joined from the from the US and the so have a good day to all of you. Thank you, and
thank you.
Yeah, bye bye for now.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.